Hello and welcome to ScotRock.
We're your hosts from ClimbScotland, Robert MacKenzie
And me, Callum McBain, catch up with climbers every 2 weeks who have different epic tales to tell us.
We hope you enjoy the show.
And remember, when you're out climbing, be safe and do your buddy checks.
So hello and welcome to everybody that is watching us tonight. This is our very first ScotRock live podcast. We're doing this on Facebook Live on the Mountaineering Scotland, ClimbScotland and Tiso page. So hopefully we're going to get loads of people watching this and we've got some pretty cool people to chat to. I'm your host, I'm Robert MacKenzie. Myself and my colleague Callum, we work for ClimbScotland. We run the ScotRock podcast. Unfortunately, Callum couldn't make it tonight, but that's okay. He's got a face for radio anyway. So tonight we're joined by three absolute legends. The wonderful Iona Rendall. The quiet Iona Rendall.
Sorry.
Our resident Everest conqueror, Mollie Hughes. And, do I mention the moustache? No. Our adventure photographer, Hamish Frost. These guys are all inspirational mountain people, but they're also just awesome people in general. Great to chat to. And they're also all on the Tiso Supported By team. Who Tiso, along with Mountaineering Scotland and ClimbScotland, are supporting us for this Facebook Live. So big thank you to them. Like I said, this is our first live interview. I'm not nervous at all. First of all, thank you to the three of you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
No worries.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good to be here.
Getting at home safely. Let's do some introductions to kick off for anybody that doesn't know all of your great exploits. And like I said, please don't be modest. Big yourselves up. Let our audience know just how big legends you guys actually are. We're going to do this slightly differently. Iona is going to introduce Hamish. Hamish is going to introduce Mollie, and Mollie is going to introduce Iona. So Iona, do you want to kick us off? Who is Hamish?
So Hamish, I only know Hamish through Tiso, but he is an incredible, outstanding adventure photographer. Travels to some of the furthest flung parts of the world, taking amazing photos of people and landscapes in the outdoors and adventure, and extremely inspiring and very, very humble and modest. But I would definitely recommend following Hamish on social media for all of the things that he posts, the places that he goes in non-COVID times.
That's very kind. Thank you, Iona. Very generous.
Definitely not enough.
Mollie is an absolute legend in the climbing community. She has a pretty serious list of achievements to her name already. I'm sure there'll be many more to come. But she's climbed Everest, summited Everest from both sides. She's skied solo from the coast of Antarctica to the South Pole. And most importantly, I've shared quite a few hill days with Mollie, and she's just good fun to spend days in the hills with, and a really good, probably fun person.
Oh, thanks, mate.
That's right. Don't be this is after Mollie. Mollie, we had a chat before the call, and Mollie spent. And the first thing she did was came on and give me abuse about the mustache. So that's all right.
That's with anyone with that thing on your face, Hamish.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was stuck. Thank you, Hamish. That was very kind. So Iona. Iona by day is a nurse, but by the weekends and the evenings, she is an absolute adventure queen. Iona started getting into the outdoors 4 years ago, properly doing big kind of hill days. And she started a Facebook group called Iona's Ventures, which started small. And I don't think you even envisaged how big it would get, did you? But now it's got, 4,000 members? Yeah, 4,000 members of lovely, lovely people that just want to get out into the outdoors and enjoy it. And Iona supports them by organising group walks and supporting them in all sorts of different ways. And she's done, amazing things for getting people into the outdoors and the accessibility of it all. She's also an absolute legend.
It's Mollie.
Oh, look at you, the rosy cheeks, all embarrassed now.
I know, I am a bit. I mean, Mollie's an actual legend and Hamish is a total legend. I feel very honoured to be included alongside them tonight.
Well, the three of you are all very inspirational people, and it's an honour for me to be able to sit down and chat with you guys. And I hope everyone listening and watching along agrees with me. I am going to get one community question out of the way early, because there was a lot of people asked this question. Mollie, how old were you when you did Everest for the first time?
The first time I was 21 from the south side and 26 from the north side.
Wow. Yeah, we got a lot of people asking that question, and I will be honest, I didn't even know the answer.
That's okay.
So yeah, like I said, seriously impressive people. But let's dive into some questions. Also, obviously, all you guys know each other from many things, but you're all supported by Tiso, and I think a lot of people hear the term supported by or ambassador or sponsored athletes, and they don't really know exactly what kind of goes into that, what it means, how you got it, what it allows you to do. So kind of, and obviously contracts for you guys are all different, and what you're expected to do and what you actually get out and do is very different. So from your perspective, what does being on that team mean to you guys? What do you want to be able to do with it? Iona,
So,
kick us off.
for me, when, like Mollie said, I only really started properly hill walking about 4.5 years ago. So it was a very unknown thing to me. It wasn't something that I'd grown up doing. I didn't have anybody around me that could kind of guide me or help me. And when Tiso first contacted me, it was about sort of helping me get some staple bits of kit for me to access the outdoors. But it's been so much more than that. It's been, even the first time that I tried crampons and winter walking was with the Tiso group, and we did a group walk, and that was the very first time I'd ever put crampons on, and Mollie was there and a few of the others were there to sort of help me and explain what to do, and just felt like in a really sort of safe, supported environment. And it's been a lot of things like that, and Tiso really helped to promote my walking group, and I recently set up a social enterprise to provide outdoor skills courses, and Tiso have helped to promote that as well. So I get to write a few articles and things for them here and there and review some kit. But I think a lot of people assume that the most important thing is about getting free kit and stuff. But for me, it's more about the actual support and the people that are behind the organisation that are there to really just big you up and give you guidance and things. And that's the thing that I appreciate the most anyway.
Nice. What are you able to do with Tiso? You say they give you loads of support, but what do you want to be able to achieve with the time that you've got with them?
I think in terms of what I want to get out of it, it's about sort of them helping me to show people that anybody can get outside and get outdoors and access the hills, because like Mollie said, I'm a nurse during the day, and I'm not a full-time adventurer. I'm not paid to be an athlete. I'm definitely not an athlete. So it's that side of things, showing that anybody can do it, and that's sort of my mission, and Tiso helped to promote that as well.
Grand.
Yeah, so I guess my role is slightly different to these guys, mainly because I actually work for Tiso. So I work part-time for Tiso. I'm in their head office, usually 2 or 3 days a week. Well, not at the moment, but in normal times. And I work within the marketing department. And I actually kind of ran the ambassador program for the last few years, looking after these guys, organizing trips that we do, kind of co-ops with different brands and photo shoots. So that's been really good. But then also I've worked at various times as an ambassador for Tiso. Most notably, they helped to sponsor my Everest 2017 expedition on the north side from Tibet. And that was incredible to have their support, because this company has a huge history on Mount Everest. Graham Tiso was on it in the 70s. Chris Tiso was on it 2000. So they got this big history of being on the mountain themselves, but also supporting expeditions. So having their support in 2017 was incredible. It got me to the top of that mountain. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's kind of my role. And as an employee, yeah, I love working with guys like this and try and make it as accessible as possible and do some cool projects together.
Yeah, I think the main thing for me is something Iona touched on briefly, which is that both myself and Tiso, I guess, share a common interest in wanting to encourage more people to get out in the outdoors and explore the Scottish Highlands. I mean, that's probably one of the main reasons I started taking photos on my days out in the hills, was basically to try. I kind of discovered that the Scottish Highlands were this amazing place where you can go out and have these amazing adventures. And I wanted to try and encourage friends and other people I knew to go and do that. And the way that I could do that easily was through taking photos and posting them on social media. And that's something that Tiso actively try and encourage as well. So I guess it gives me the opportunity to get my photos out to a wider audience, and do things like blog posts and that sort of thing that help encourage other people to get out and do the sort of thing that I'm doing. So yeah, there's a common interest there, and obviously they also help. They're very helpful with bits and pieces of kit as and when I need it. I'm quite good about I test kit to destruction quite a lot in what I do, and they've helped me out in quite a few tight spots a few times before when I've needed bits and pieces. So yeah.
Grant. How did it begin with Tiso for you guys? Like, was it something that you sought out because you needed the support, or did they come to you and offer help?
For me, they came and offered it to me. This was actually before I turned professional with the photography. It was back when I was working for SSE, but I was kind of considering taking the jump. So yeah, they came and approached me about potentially getting involved in the supported by scheme. And it was little things like that I think gave me a bit of confidence eventually to take the jump and turn professional myself, is having that kind of support from a well-established body like Tiso.
Yeah, nice.
That's cool. For me, I started working in their shop. So I moved to Scotland 6 years ago, and I was in Edinburgh and I needed a job. And I'd worked for, I don't know if I should say it, but another retailer down south for a while.
No.
And I came to Scotland and I was, I needed a job. So I went straight into Tiso because I'd heard it was, the best place in Scotland if you want to be in outdoor retail. And I worked there for a couple of years on Rose Street. And then after that, I moved up to head office. And then, got involved with kind of projects from there.
A message from someone at Tiso just not long after I'd set up the walking group on Facebook, and I think I'd maybe tagged Tiso in a few things, and I'd actually met one of the other supported by ambassadors, Rachel, who's also an adventure photographer. And she had said to me about this sort of ambassador program that she was on, and she'd suggested to me that I should look into it. And when I'd searched Tiso, because I was so new to it, I'd never even heard of Tiso before. I didn't know what Tiso was. So when I'd searched Tiso and looked it up, and I saw that you could kind of apply to this sort of program, I thought, I'll just type something in there. And I think I said something about wanting to change the world and get people outdoors, or something ridiculously fanciful like that. And then months later, I got this message from somebody at Tiso. And I said, I actually applied a little while ago. And they said that they'd seen my social media and things, and seen the walking group, and would I be interested on coming on board? So I'd sort of done this application thinking, well, there's not a chance in hell that it'll come to anything. And I think it was possibly, I don't know if Mollie will maybe have more details, but I think it was maybe a combination of that and things that I've been tagging and posting on social media that had brought them to kind of get in contact with me. So that was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I remember that first time, Iona, that we met in the cafe at Tiso, and I think it was me and Colin, and we came in for a chat. And it was fun. But I think we just saw how passionate you were about what you're doing and about the outdoors. And also, I think within an ambassador program, it's great to have a big variety of people. Like, you don't want just the amazing high-end photographers like Hamish, who are great and wonderful to have on a program.
Or the world record holders like Mollie.
But yeah, you know what I mean? Though. We want it to be as accessible as possible, and you were just absolutely chumping.
Cool. So it's nice. It's cool to see that the team that you guys have got, that you guys are all so close. So it's really nice to see that within even a big organization like Tiso, you guys are like a little family. It's nice. Slightly bigger question then. So right now, Tiso Mountaineering Scotland, they've got the big hashtag Think Winter campaign on the go. And it's aimed at giving people good advice, good knowledge on planning and safety in the mountains so that they can get out and be safe when they're out there and make the right decisions when it counts. If anybody watching this hasn't seen the Think Winter campaign yet, this is my shameless self-promotion plug. Go and check it out. Hashtag Think Winter. It'll be all over their Facebook pages and on their website. So yeah, go check it out. But while this campaign is providing lessons to make people sort of better prepared when they get out there, what are some of the biggest lessons that you guys have learned in your time from starting out to where you are now? Maybe things you've had to learn the hard way, or sort of big life lessons you've learned. Obviously, you guys have been doing this for vastly different times, so yeah, it'd be interesting to hear what the biggest moments were.
So I am not afraid to say that obviously I was a bit of total rookie starting out. Probably did lots of things the wrong way, and I would never ever pretend that I knew exactly what I was doing from the start, because I definitely didn't. And I've learned a lot of lessons. One thing that sticks in my mind that I do think is really important, especially with the Think Winter campaign, was sort of early spring one year. I was visiting friends on the Isle of Skye, and I did a hike on my own up a Munro, and even though it was nice weather at that time of year, there's a lot of snow still at the top, and I'd said to my boyfriend that I was going out hiking that day, and I'd obviously said to the people that I was visiting that I was going out hiking. Did this big day, load the snow at the top, but that was fine, and came back down. Obviously spent the evening with the friends that I was staying with, and hadn't said to my partner, I hadn't sent him a message to say that that was me home and that I was safe. And of course, he didn't hear from me all evening, was really worried that I was lost up a mountain or had fallen off the mountain. He tried phoning me, but my phone was on silent, just like next to me, but I couldn't see it in the house. And got to the point where he contacted my family saying, I haven't heard from Iona. I think she's lost on a mountain. And my family, one of my sisters actually knew the friend that I was staying with, and sent her a message, a really panicked message saying, Boomer hasn't heard from Iona all day. What's happened? And, we were sitting there eating Chinese or whatever. And I realised after that that's one of the things within the Think Winter campaign and all sort of mountaineering basics, is to let someone know where you're going, when you're going, and when to expect you back. So I had let them know where I was going and when I was going, but I hadn't let them know when I got back, and that just set everybody panicking. And I felt really guilty because they'd all been so worried, and I was absolutely perfectly fine eating my takeaway afterwards. But that's a really serious point where if I had actually, something had actually happened to me, that would be the point where you would be calling sort of mountain rescue to look for somebody. So that's, one of the biggest things that I've learned, is just to let somebody know where I am and when to expect me back, so that if they don't hear from me, they know to sort of set things in motion.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely one of the most important lessons to learn. Just making sure that someone has your back, even when you're going out, even if you're on your own. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. And I had a bit of a think about this before, and I didn't really come up with a very good answer, because I really kind of just thought that every single time I go out in the hills, I learn a little bit more. And I think everyone does, even the top mountain guys that we've got in the UK. Every time you go out, you learn a little bit about looking after yourself, about your kit, about things you should do, things you shouldn't do, about navigation, about weather conditions. So I think it's a constant learning experience, and I'm still absolutely on that journey, and I'm still enjoying that journey. I think winter is a different ballgame to summer, and in Scotland it can get pretty gnarly, as we all know. So I think one of the biggest tips is just having a lot of caution in winter. Still get out there, enjoy it, but be cautious and be aware of the added dangers around you of snow and avalanche and cold temperatures and wind chill factors. So yeah, just being a little. I just saw that person in your mirror behind you, Hamish. I enjoyed that.
That's my housemate.
So yeah, I think just being a little bit more cautious in winter. But in a bigger question, I think it was what have we really learned about the outdoors? And I think there's so much more that I've learned apart from navigation and what jacket to take. I think I've learned so much more about like resilience and about how to be confident in myself. And I think these lessons that we get from the outdoors are so much more important than anything else because we can transfer them to the rest of our lives and our normal jobs. So yeah, it's a great place, and I would encourage anyone else to get out there.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. It's interesting. You mentioned something there about still being on the learning curve, and I think that's something that a lot of people kind of forget. You know, after they've been doing it for a while, they're starting to get a bit slick at things, a bit overconfident with things, and they forget that every day is a school day. We're all still learning things. I'm exactly the same as you. I've been climbing for a long time now, and I'm still learning new things every time I go out and relearning things that I completely forgot because I've been doing this for so long. So yeah, I think that's a big thing that people kind of forget is to kind of pay attention to what's going on and keep learning, keep improving.
Yeah, and never get too comfortable because the great outdoors is it's got its own thing going on. It's got its own weather. It's got its own rules. So yeah, always having that bit of caution, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Take note, everybody watching this. Someone who summited Everest still says she's learning. We're never too good. How about you, Hamish?
Well, this is rubbish because Mollie's completely nicked my answer. So I'll just expand on it further. I was going to talk about it all being a constant learning process. And I think the big thing is just to stay humble. No matter how many times or how many days you've had out in the mountains, there are always more things you can learn. So I kind of try and make a point of, even if the day's gone smoothly and everything's been fine and you've successfully achieved what you set out to achieve, try and have a think back and try and take away one point, one thing that you can maybe learn from the day, or some way you can improve your systems or improve what kit you brought, whether you brought something that you maybe didn't need, or you didn't bring something that you should have brought and could have needed, or whether it's something to do with misjudging the planning, like weather forecasts or your route choice for the day. Just try and pick out something that you can maybe take away as a bit of a learning point, and have that little review process at the end of each day. And by doing that, you're only going to improve how you perform in the mountains and keep yourself safer and hopefully have more fun as a result.
Yeah. Obviously the Think Winter campaign is kind of based for people, newbies thinking about moving from summer activities, maybe doing a bit of new winter activities, but also, like we said, keeping in touch with skills that you haven't practiced that much, or you've kind of forgotten over time. So what if someone was brand new to winter climbing, or winter mountaineering? Once we're allowed to travel again, once we're allowed to get back out there, and they're thinking about getting out, what's give us one key piece of advice that you would give to people?
I'd say definitely book a skills course, because this time last year I did one of Mountaineering Scotland's one-day winter skills courses, and I learned absolutely heaps in that day. And it's not just about how to use crampons and an ice axe, it's also about understanding avalanche forecast, or beginning to understand avalanche forecasts and the weather forecasts and route planning. The people who run those courses are so experienced and so skilled, and they're really skilled at delivering the courses, which means that even though it's just one day, you pack so much information and so much learning into that short space of time. And even though it's a year later and I haven't really been able to practice those skills because of lockdown, I feel like there's so much more that I know now that I didn't know before that course. And yeah, I would say definitely book one of those. And I think Mountaineering Scotland have had like online webinars that you can book as well. So that's a really good sort of alternative resource for still learning even when you're in lockdown. And if you're just beginning, then there's heaps of resources and so much guidance and information out there. So I'd say not being afraid to sort of admit that you're a newbie like me, and that you want to learn, and that there's loads to learn, because there's no point going out there and being too cocky and confident. And like Mollie said, it's good to be cautious. It's good to plan and to learn. So I would say that's one of my biggest tips, is just book a course or find somebody to learn from.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree with that. And yeah, like you said, there's loads of skills courses and stuff on the Mountaineering Scotland website, not just for winter stuff, but summer stuff as well. So yeah, anything you want to learn, anything you want to try that's new, or any old skills that you want to just keep in touch with, yeah, go check it out for sure. How about you, Mollie?
Yeah, I mean, totally agree with Iona. You got to skill up and at least get some kind of basic winter skills, because you'll be so much safer and you'll have so much more fun. I guess one top tip from my learning experience would be always attach your rope to your bag, if you can, because one of my first days winter climbing in Scotland, I was out with my friend John Gupta, who's a guide. Hamish knows him quite well as well, and he was taking me up. I think it's called, is it Tower Scoop on the north face of Ben Nevis? That little tiny ice section. And we walked all the way up to the kind of bottom of that route, and we're getting the ropes out, and I was carrying the rope. And as I opened the lid of my bag, the rope just disappeared right down the face. And it went about 200 meters all the way down. So that just changed our day completely. And actually, because John's such a legend, he was like, don't worry, I'll go and get that. And I was like, okay, thanks, mate. And he ran all the way down there and got the rope. So yeah, always attach your rope and everything.
Yeah. I made a mistake, was it a couple of years ago? I was doing Curved Ridge, nice easy day. Went up, scrambled down Curved Ridge, got to the bottom, took my bag off to put my helmet away, and I let go of the bag. It vanished over one of the edges down past the waterfall. And if I had something attached to it, I might have been able to rescue it a bit easier. So yeah, that's good advice. I might take that.
Gravity is annoying sometimes, isn't it?
A little bit. For three people that spend our lives fighting gravity, it's a bit annoying. Hamish?
Yeah, I'd expand on what Iona was saying about getting knowledge from other people. Yeah, I mean, I guess there are quite a few barriers to entry to doing stuff in the mountains in winter. I mean, there's quite a lot of sort of financial barriers around the cost of equipment and cost of if you want to go on a winter skills course or something like that. So I guess other options are online resources, or there are climbing clubs as well that you can join, which will have other members, and they're kind of geared up for teaching people who are perhaps not that experienced to go out and do stuff in the hills for the first time. But if you are in a position where you kind of have to learn yourself, or teach yourself, or learn just by going out with friends who are also having their first times out in the hills in winter, start relatively unambitious with your plans. Just go out there. Don't have any aspirations to get up the top of a hill, but just go out there and sort of have a go with the kit and equipment, and be prepared to be flexible and change plans if things get more serious weather-wise, or if you start to come into difficulty on the terrain. Yeah, that's
yeah. No. Like when we're looking at the plans thing, one of the best lessons I've ever learned, and I'm sure you guys all agree, is there is no plan A, B, C. They're all plan A's. Things change. The terrain might be more difficult than you thought, or easier than you thought. The weather might change. The conditions might not be what you thought. So yeah, like have other alternatives in your mind for what you could do that day, not just getting to the top of this hill or whatever. And they're all plan A's, so no alternative should feel disappointing. At the end of the day, we're all still just going out and playing, aren't we?
It ties back into what I said earlier as well about the continuous review of each day, and trying to learn something from each day. Even if you didn't get up the top of the hill, but if you went out and learned something from your day, then that's still a big success.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a comment come in there, someone describing how they went out and errors were made, and they came home instantly and wrote down what went wrong to learn from that mistake. I think that's a really good lesson for people to learn, is recognize the errors that you make and learn from them. even if it takes coming home and writing it in your diary, and talking about it with other people as well. Like I'm sure you guys, if you've made errors when you're out in the hill or whatever, you talk to other experienced people and see what you can learn from it. Is that something you guys do?
Yeah, I'd say as well that, especially for me with the walking group, I've maybe organised group walks that people have come on who are far more experienced than me. And because the group walks are just sort of, it's a voluntary social thing. It's not me saying that I'm leading, because I am definitely not a mountain leader, but there's been quite often times where people are more experienced and they've been able to give sort of advice or guidance to people to sort of learn along the way, and that's really good. It's a fun social thing to do, but at the same time picking up on things that people mention, or somebody has a story to tell while you're walking, and you sort of learn from their errors and their stories from the past. So yeah, it's definitely worth talking about. There's no point, especially with social media, I think it's really easy for people to sort of share the highlights or share the summit photos, but it's not all about that. Like you say, you don't always have to get to the summit to learn something, and that's what Hamish kind of touched on, that you'll always be improving and learning anyway. And I think is it summit fever that it's called, when people are just determined to get to the top of a mountain, and that's not what an adventure is about. That's not what a big day is about. It's just being out there in the first place, and like you say, turning back if you have to, or choosing an alternative plan. So I think on social media it's important to remember that what people always post maybe isn't necessarily the whole truth, and there's been a lot more learning and errors and mistakes and stories along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, take social media with a pinch of salt. It's always the highlight reel.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, Iona. Actually, that's some of the best and most useful posts I've seen on social media when it comes to doing stuff in the mountains, particularly in winter, are where people have got into trouble. I've seen some posts, for example, where people have been caught in avalanches while out ski touring, and they've come and it takes a lot of bravery to do it. But you're sort of opening yourself up to a lot of judgment, but they've gone and described the incident, and they've gone and described the mistakes they made, they think they made in the build up to that incident, and how what potentially led to them getting caught in that avalanche or having that particular accident happening while climbing or something like that. But those kind of posts are really useful for everyone to see on social media, because they're great learning points, and you can look at that and be like, it makes you sort of, you can relate what happened to them to a time when you're out in the hills, and it might help you make a better decision or guide your judgment while out in the hills. So those, I think if generally we kind of foster a community online, a kind of like mentality online, not to be too judgmental of when people make mistakes in the hills, but instead allow people to put those posts up without being judged, then that's a really helpful thing on the whole to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, a bit of understanding, like the skills and the equipment that we have to be able to keep ourselves safe out there. We're all developed by people going out making mistakes and learning from it and developing. And we all still need to do that. We all still need to do the trial and error thing and make mistakes and learn from it. Obviously, we hope that any mistake people make doesn't cause injury or get people into trouble or whatever, but learn from any error that you make and talk about it with the community, talk about it with friends, so that they can also learn with you. One thing Hamish touched on there was the kind of barrier to entry. The going out winter climbing or winter hill walking, that can be a slightly expensive game. I think Mollie would be the best person to ask about this. Could you give us a quick rundown on Tiso's hiring equipment?
Don't test me like this. At Tiso, equipment hire is available. The prices I don't know, but yeah, you can hire boots, mountaineering boots, crampons, axes, paddleboards in the summer, canoes and kayaks, all that kind of thing, really. I think Iona's hired it a few times, haven't you? Crampons and stuff.
I've used the paddleboards and the winter kit as well, so it's definitely worth it, especially if you're trying something for the first time and you don't know whether it's worth investing, or if you can't afford to invest. The higher stuff is really good.
Yeah, totally. Because kit is expensive, especially if you need mountaineering boots and crampons that you're only going to wear in winter. And paddleboards are very expensive. So yeah, coming in and testing that is good.
Yeah.
Also, buying lots of stuff secondhand online as well. There's quite a lot of good Facebook pages like Outdoor Gear Exchange and others. There's some related to ski touring in the UK where people are constantly selling on secondhand kit that's still in very good condition. And obviously that's good for the environment, and it's also a lot cheaper as well. Some things you probably shouldn't buy secondhand, like safety critical kit like ropes and climbing equipment, but lots of things like jackets and crampons and stuff like that that are still perfectly serviceable. That's a good way of getting stuff cheaper.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good things to know. And you also mentioned that there's clubs out there that are there with people, with members who are experienced and are able to take people out and show them the ropes. You don't have to go out on your own and figure this stuff out alone. There's a big list of all the climbing clubs, the hill walking clubs in Scotland on the Mountaineering Scotland website. So yeah, if you want to get out there but you don't have people that can take you, clubs are a brilliant way to do that as well. So go and check it out. So over the last year, over 2020, climbing walls have been closed, gyms have been closed, indoor facilities have been closed. So there's been a huge boom in people using the outdoors as just a way of exercise, a way to escape being shut indoors, taking to the hills, taking to the mountains, which is brilliant. And we really hope that we see many, if not all of them, continue doing it in the future post-COVID. But a lot of these people have come from non-outdoor background, and may not have much experience in the sort of planning side, the safety side, even the ethics side of things, especially when it comes to climbing, the ethics really comes into it. And, you know, there's a little bit of learning still to do there. So what would you guys like to see these newbie adventurers learn for the future to help them? Or what would you like to see the community proactively doing to support these people being able to get out there safely, plan safely, behaving themselves, being ethical, and just enjoy it? Okay,
yeah. So I think I'll talk about the doing it responsibly side of things, because this was something we saw after the first lockdown a lot, is that there was a big boom in staycations and there were suddenly loads of people out in the Highlands, out exploring the mountains, camping and everything, which is great. But you did see a lot of people doing, start cutting down trees to start wildfires and leaving all their camping equipment behind afterwards and that kind of thing, which is a bit depressing to see. And I think we'll probably see it again this summer because, there's so much uncertainty about whether people can go abroad on holiday, that kind of thing. So we're going to have the same problems all over again. What there was last summer, you saw a lot of instances of people taking photos of people behaving like this, cutting down trees or leaving all their camping equipment behind and then putting them on social media and trying to shame people, which I think is probably not a very good, effective method of doing it. Instead, what you should be doing is, I think what we need to focus on sort of trying to educate people that this is how you should behave in these quite fragile, delicate environments, rather than trying to shame them and ostracize them from the community. So it's quite a difficult thing to do, but I think it basically requires everyone who is out in the hills, if they see examples of this sort of behavior, sort of very politely and in a non-judgmental way, trying to inform them, to tell them that you shouldn't do it this way, this is how you should do it, and these are the reasons why. It can be quite a tricky, sensitive thing to do, and if you're not comfortable doing it, then don't. You don't want to sort of risk getting in trouble or a fight or something like that over it. But if you see the opportunity to do it and you feel confident doing it, then do that rather than trying to shame them on social media, which, just doesn't really fix the situation at all. It's more about educating politely and gently, I think. And that's something that anyone who goes out and uses the hills, goes out in the hills during this summer can do if they feel confident doing so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree with that. Being able to have conversations with people and try and impart your wisdom on them and show them how to do what they're doing a little bit more responsibly if you recognize they're doing something inappropriate. Being able to have that conversation is a really important thing. Obviously, that's, it's a difficult conversation to have sometimes, and it might not be received well. Human beings don't actually like getting told off.
No.
But yeah, it's, have the confidence to be able to start a conversation. If it goes well, fantastic. You've done a brilliant thing for someone. If it doesn't go well, accept your losses. There's other resources that they can go to look that stuff up. But on the same side, make sure that what you're saying is correct as well. I think a lot of people, there's been a lot of things online late in the last year, especially people getting very aggressive on social media posts and everything, and saying things that aren't maybe that true. So look up your access codes and how to do things responsibly and ethically, and any local restrictions or anything, or local ethics. Look that kind of stuff up. Teach yourself how to do this stuff properly, and then you'll be in a much better position to show others how to do it. So yeah, I completely agree with that, Hamish.
So I guess for me, I think we need to go to the kind of foundation of it. And what the foundation is young people, and looking after young people's outdoor education. And 2020 has been a horrific year for outdoor education for young people, with outdoor centres closing across the country, with no kids going on any residentials, no kids really getting any outdoor education whatsoever. I've recently started working really closely with ClimbScotland. I'm lucky enough to become the president of ClimbScotland. So over the next year, I'm going to be working really closely with them to try and boost this as much as I can, because I think that really is the way to change it all. Like, we as a group know the benefits of the outdoors for us physically and mentally, but also we know how much of a passion it instills in us to look after the outdoors, to protect it, to respect it. And if we could instill that passion in young people from, primary school kids all the way through, just from them getting exposure in the outdoors, for them kind of generating a love for it, they're going to want to protect it. They're not going to leave their rubbish lying around. They're not going to leave tents lying around. So I think really kind of hitting the youth and hitting this kind of outdoor education will absolutely, solve this problem in 10, 20 years time. And it's something I think we need to make a priority as a community of outdoor lovers, but also the government need to step in and support outdoor centres and support outdoor education, and really realise. I think everyone realises the benefit of it, but nobody really puts the money where the mouth is at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. This year has been pretty disastrous for the outdoor education sector. Especially, the residential centres are still struggling with things. So yeah, we all need to give them our support and make sure that, in the next couple of years, the government do step up to help support and build on what we had. Like you said, if more kids learn how to get out there safely and responsibly, we'll have a lot less issues with adults doing things irresponsibly in the hills. So yeah, fully support that, and the more we can do as a community to support that, the better.
Yeah, totally. And people will be more respectful and they'll understand it more, but also people are going to be happier, aren't they? They're going to have better mental health, they're going to be physically fitter, and they're going to care more about the environment. So I think it will fix everything.
So I was going to say about exploring responsibly and things, but I think the other guys have kind of covered that. The only other thing I would add on that topic is things like the Pentland Hills are my local hills, just outside Edinburgh. And there's programs like volunteer rangers who, I think there's a long waiting list to join, but it just means that if you're out walking in the Pentlands and you spot something that needs repaired, whether it's a fence or a gate or whatever, there's sort of people that you can go to and report that to, and that sort of helps to maintain and look after the places that we like to explore and adventure, and that's important for me because I can access the Pentlands in lockdown. And it was a friend of mine who said to me that she was a volunteer ranger, which sounds incredible and just sounds so cool to be able to look after the outdoor spaces that we access. So that's kind of the other thing that I would add on to that. In terms of people who are sort of just beginning to get outdoors and to go hill walking and trying these things for the first time, I think it's really important that everybody as a community, as individuals, are really just supportive and welcoming. I know for me, it's not been a long time that I've been hill walking, and it felt really, really daunting to begin with. I lived in Aviemore for a few years before I even considered hill walking. I thought you had to be a professional, thought you had to be an athlete, and it was just too intimidating for me. And maybe that's just me as a person that kind of put myself down, and a lot of self-doubt and things like that. But once I got into it, and once I started the walking group and started meeting people, realizing how supportive everybody else actually was. And yeah, there's the occasional person who they're just there for bragging rights, but most people in the outdoor community, it really is a community. I know that can be a bit of a cliche word and it can be thrown around really easily, but in the outdoors, people do just want to support each other and do want to see each other improve and progress and learn, like we were saying before, learning from each other. So I think it's just important that, you know, if you see somebody who is just starting out, or if they approach you for advice, it's not a case of putting them down and sort of saying, well, what you mean, you didn't know that or you don't understand that. It's actually educating somebody and offering guidance if you're lucky enough to be in that position where you know that and you can provide that. And that'll really help people to feel welcome and to feel like it is a place for everyone to access, because it is. It's just that we need to be there to support each other and to pass on that knowledge and experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% support the mountaineering club, the mountaineering community, the hill walking community, the climbing community. We're all just a big family. Every time I know personally, every time I see someone out in the hills, it's awesome because they're out doing the thing that I love as well. It's cool that we all get to share that thing. I think that comes across when you meet someone in the outdoors. There is that kind of mutual respect because you're out there doing the same lovely thing that you enjoy. But yeah, being able to pass on experience. I know the old idea of the mentorship it is slightly fading these days, and I think maybe not fading. I think it still is there, but obviously there's so many more people getting out. There's a lot of people that aren't getting that. So yeah, if you see people or people are asking you for help, being able to pass on knowledge is a great thing to do. Yeah, absolutely. And that's really good that all that came up, because there was like 5 questions in a row came up on the Instagram live, the Facebook live on this exact topic. Well done, guys. Topical. Let's go for something slightly positive. Let's bring a positive note into this. Let's take a question from the Facebook live. So during the first lockdown, climbers and hill walkers they spent a lot of time reminiscing on their favorite mountain moments, their favorite days out. There was loads of posts, photos of people going, "Oh, this is my great day back in 2008," and people really getting back into reminiscing about their favorite days. So go on, tell me about your favorite day out in the hills, and add to that one actually, what is your favorite mountain in Scotland?
Who's going first?
Mollie, you go first.
It's a hard question because there are so many. I guess a couple of days that spring to mind were similar to the days I spoke about at the beginning when I first started winter climbing, and I had a few days out with this guy John Gupta, and we just seemed to have perfect weather. All days we went out with him, maybe like 2 or 3 days in a row together. Perfect weather, and we did some really fun, great routes on the north face of the Ben. And I think just topping out on the north face of the Ben when the sun is just setting and when you've been in the shade all day, and it's just incredible. The views on a still day, you can see so far, and in winter, it's just mesmerizing. So I think a couple of those days where I just had a lot of fun and amazing conditions and amazing views.
Favorite hill?
I could say Ben Nevis, couldn't I? It's pretty epic. And I like big mountains. So.
Hamish looks like he's deep in thought.
It's a difficult question. Go on, big Iona next.
Right, Iona, let's leave him to think.
And I think Hamish should tell us what his favourite mountain has been to photograph. So you can think about that one as well, Hamish. My favourite day, I've told this story heaps of times, but I love it. I said before that I lived in Aviemore for a few years before I started hiking. And I used to see people posting photos of Scorgui, and it's a mountain in the Cairngorms that has this beautiful, stunning view down over Loch Eyne from the top. And I used to see people posting photos, and I thought, oh, that would never be me. You'd never get me up a mountain, and I'd never be capable of it in the first place. I left Aviemore, lived in Edinburgh, and ironically away from the mountains, and realised once I'd started hiking that actually there was no reason that I couldn't hike up that mountain that I saw everybody else posting amazing photos of. And when I was back in Aviemore visiting one weekend, the weather was beautiful, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. And I set out solo hike. I cycled from Aviemore to Feshy Bridge, which is where the walk starts from, and set out hiking up. And as I was sort of near the top, I could see the cloud coming in, and I thought, oh, great. That typical summit photo that I see everybody else getting, I'm not even going to get the view. And as I got to the top, the clouds started to clear, and this stunning view of Loch Eyne just came into view below, and it was absolutely amazing. And I took hundreds of selfies at the top, and I had my camera, my little GoPro camera set up on self-timer and stuff, because I just felt so chuffed that I'd made it to the top. And I think it was the main thing was the fact that I'd spent so long telling myself that I was never going to do that. I was never going to be capable of it. Yet here I was. It was something that I suppose I'd put on a pedestal, and it might not be the biggest mountain. It might not be the most exciting mountain to hike up. But for me, it had just been on my mind for such a long time, and it felt like such a big achievement for me. And yeah, that just stands out. And that was a couple of years ago now, but it's still my favorite memory of hill walking in Scotland, my favorite mountain so far. Just meant a lot to me personally.
Well, Hamish, have you got an answer?
I think I'm good to go. Yeah, took a lot of thought. It was a hard one. Good question though. So I think my favorite, it's not so much a mountain moment, but day out in the Scottish Highlands. I think is a fairly recent one actually. It was during this summer just gone. I spent quite a bit of time out getting photographs for a friend of mine's book called The Great Sea Cliffs of Scotland. So it's photographing a lot of sea cliff climbing. And one of the places we visited to do that is Cape Wrath, which is up in the north. It's kind of the most northwesterly point of the mainland UK. And it has some of the highest sea cliffs in fact, it has the highest sea cliffs on the mainland in Britain. So up to 250, 300 meters high in places. And we had 2 trips up there to get photos for the book. And the first trip, I was absolutely terrified because it was one of the most ambitious places I'd taken climbing photographs before. So the whole day I kind of felt quite on edge because it's quite a big. I had to rig static line all the way down the cliffs, and so it was quite ambitious access to get in position for it. So, but anyway, it all went well. And it turned out that it was a far less intimidating place than I thought. So it meant the second trip I could kind of relax a bit. But the second trip we went up there, and when you get to go to Cape Wrath, you kind of drive up towards Durness, and you get a ferry across the channel, and then there's this old section of road, completely battered up road, and the local lighthouse keeper comes and picks you up and gives you a lift down the road, and drops you off near the bothy up there. But anyway, on the whole drive in, the whole place was completely blanketed in fog, and you couldn't see anything. And then we hiked up to the top of the cliffs, and as we reached near the top of the cliffs, we kind of got above the cloud, and the sun kind of started coming through, and suddenly we were on top of this cliff looking down, and there was this whole sea of cloud underneath us, sitting on top of the North Atlantic Ocean. And then we abseiled in, and we proceeded to spend the whole day. And it's probably one of the most stunning days I've had out in Scotland. So we were climbing on these sea cliffs with this sea of cloud below us, getting photos in a place we'd kind of like become a lot more comfortable with and a lot more acclimatized to the height and the exposure and everything. So it was a really chilled out, fun day with good friends. And as we topped out, the sun started setting and the clouds were still sitting below us. So we had this cloud inversion below us, and just, the perfect end to a perfect day out doing what I love, taking photos with good friends on sea cliffs in Scotland in a really stunning location. So yeah, that's probably the most memorable I've had. And favorite hill, I did have one. Oh yes, and Chillac, which is one of the most dramatic ridge lines in Scotland, and it's up in the Northwest Highlands, which is one of my favorite parts of Scotland. And it's just an amazing playground of a hill. There's brilliant climbing on it, there's brilliant skiing on it, there's brilliant scrambling along the ridge itself, and it's just an exciting place to visit, because on the drive north from Inverness, you can see it miles away. You can see it hulking off in the distance. It's kind of sitting out on its own, and you see this, it's dramatic, like really recognizable ridge line, and you just start to get excited on the drive up, seeing it there, and you get closer and closer, and then suddenly, wow, it's bang right in your face. And there's just so much to do up there, and it's such a stunning mountain. And I've had some really memorable days, particularly last summer. I was up there photographing a friend of mine, Tim, who did the first ever wingsuit base jump in the UK off one of the pinnacles on the mountain. I had my first ever experience of steep skiing in the Northwest Highlands up there, and yeah, I've just had some really great days out on the hill. So yeah, and it's
that is a brilliant hill. I will admit to having never actually done it. My old dog has done it. He's been on top of every peak on Anchella, but I've never managed it.
Can we just take a minute to acknowledge how cool, Hamish, you are? I mean, is anybody else just sitting here like, I've done nothing like that before?
The answer was definitely worth the wait, Hamish.
Next question from the Facebook. Can we get Iona's biscotti fudge recipe?
Oh my God, if that's Ross that said that, Ross, it is not biscotti fudge, it's Biscoff fudge. I don't know how many times I've told that boy. I'm not joking.
Excellent. Right, I'm going to go a slightly deeper question here. Someone from the Tiso page asked, is there anything that you've really feared while you're in the outdoors? Is there anything you're scared of when you're out there, and how do you cope with that?
For me, yeah, everything, like absolutely everything. On all of my expeditions, there's this constant fear, and I think you need to be a bit scared when you're in the mountains and when you're on big expeditions and big hills. And when I was in Antarctica and I was stuck in like 8 days of really bad weather, this big weather front came in, and there were days where, I was terrified. I was inside my tent and the whole thing was going crazy in the wind. I guess my biggest fear is that I'm actually pretty scared of heights. I don't like heights very much, and I'm reasonably uncomfortable at heights, which is annoying sometimes, especially when I want to be a mountaineer. And on Everest, it was particularly bad because you got to cross those horrible crevasses on ladders. So that was always terrifying for me. So yeah, there's fear always, all the time. But I think it's about learning to control that fear and not letting it stop you from doing exactly what you do. Because all fear really is an emotion, and it's there to kind of protect us a little bit and stop us going too crazy. So yeah, learning to control it is one of the biggest things I think I've done on this journey.
Yeah, I am extremely scared of the dark, and that's a genuine fear. If I am staying somewhere on my own, I generally sleep with a light on. So things like night hikes are exhilarating because I'm putting myself completely out of my comfort zone. I'm really trusting in my own ability and my kit, and having lots of spare head torches and batteries just in case. The first time I ever wild camped was a solo summit camp, funnily enough, which, looking back again, is like I was saying earlier, I really just didn't know too much about what I was doing. I'd borrowed a tent from a friend. I didn't even really know how to put it up. I'd bought a really cheap sleeping bag from Sports Direct on my way to my hike, which was terrible. And when I kind of set up this camp on almost the very top of this mountain, and the sun went down, it was the middle of summer, so it was light really late. And then it just kind of dawned on me that I am completely on my own in the dark, terrified of the dark. And I wasn't so much scared of being on my own, because what's the chances of meeting a masked murderer on the summit of a remote mountain? I mean, that's pretty slim. But I did sort of start to doubt myself, my kit especially, because I realised it was not up to it. I was freezing that night, and luckily it was the height of summer. But yeah, I really doubted myself there, and learned a lot of lessons from that. And yeah, just there's, like Mollie says, there's always fear, but I think she's like a life coach in the way that she says that, about harnessing that fear and not letting it sort of control you. And things like being really petrified of the dark, I don't let it stop me. I just try and prepare for it, and it's normally quite fun in the end. So yeah, don't let it stop any adventure plans.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Don't let your fears stop your plans.
I'm going to make Mollie feel better about herself and say I also get scared of heights in certain situations. Yeah, but I mean it's human nature, isn't it? It's humans are meant to be scared of heights because it's a dangerous situation. But and having that fear helps keep you safe. But you learn, the more time you spend around heights, the more you learn to kind of rationalize that fear, and you know that if your equipment is functioning as it should be, for example, you're climbing and you're putting gear into the rock and you're clipping the rope to that gear, and you know that gear is good, you know that you're not safe, you're not at risk of falling off the side of the cliff, so you learn to switch off to that fear. But then the times that fear will kick in again are times, for example, where your gear isn't particularly safe, or you haven't managed to find something to anchor you in, and that's where that fear of heights is kind of a survival mechanism and keeps you honest and keeps you safe. So yeah, it's perfectly natural. And I still get it if in a situation where I haven't made myself perfectly safe, then that kicks in, and that tells me that I need to do something to fix that. Otherwise, I'm in trouble. So yeah, I'd say that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really interesting question. I like the way that the question was worded. Was is there anything you fear? How do you cope with it? And I think for anybody who does what we do, anybody who plays the game that we play, absolutely is scared of stuff. We're very scared of stuff. Like you said, fear keeps you honest. Fear keeps you sharp. I think we all need that. And it's not about getting rid of the fear or not being scared when you're out there. It's finding the coping mechanisms to allow you to calm, think about it, plan, and make the right decisions when the time comes. So yeah, I think I don't think there's anybody out there that does what we do and isn't scared of something. We're all scared of something, and absolutely we should be. It's a slightly dangerous game we do sometimes. And yeah, it's not
also part of the fun of it, though. You put yourself in a scary situation and you come out the other side of it knowing that you've managed to get through that scary situation, and you get a buzz off that, and that's part of the appeal of doing stuff in the mountains.
I mean, what you've just described there is the entirety of Scottish winter climbing. It is just surviving.
Well, it can be fun as well sometimes, but yeah, a lot of it is
that. So one of the questions we got on the Instagram the other day, actually, and this is, I suppose, slightly more specific to Mollie and Iona. Hamish, you might have an opinion on this. But one of the questions was, have you guys ever felt underestimated as a female in a pretty male-dominated sport still? Or Hamish, have you noticed peers of yours being underestimated because of that? Obviously, I think climbing and mountaineering, we've come a long way from the days back in the 50s, but it's still a pretty male-dominated activity that we do, as much as we're trying to fight against that. So have you felt that?
Yeah. many times. Yeah, constantly. You always are. I think people still focus so much on traditional stereotypes of what an outdoors person is. Some big bloke with a fancy mustache or something like that.
There it is.
But no, totally. You're always underestimated as a woman, as somebody that's 5'4". You're about the same, aren't you, Iona?
You're 5'4".
Yeah.
I'm 5'3 3/4. Okay, those 3/4 make a difference.
I always say I'm 5'4.5", but I'm not. Yeah, you do, absolutely. Just in general conversations with people, in bigger projects. I think for me, I've spent so many years trying to get sponsorship for these bigger expeditions that I want to go on. And every time I enter a boardroom of people and I try and put my case across for getting a big company to sponsor it, I'm constantly know that they're looking at me and they're thinking, how on earth is this girl going to ski across Antarctica? Or how on earth is this 21-year-old going to get to the top of Everest? Because all people see is what's on the outside, and it takes so much effort to show them what's on the inside and show them what you're actually capable of. So yeah, I'm afraid it happens a lot.
I think it doesn't help as well, especially, I know I speak about social media a lot, but that's kind of where my walking group and things comes from. But it doesn't help as well when people say that, you know, other women look great in certain outdoor kits, or, you know, always focusing on how flattering something is, or, you know, it's all about, like Mollie said, it's all about the physical, it's all about the things you can see on the outside. And I think maybe we should focus a little bit more on saying things like, you look super strong, or you look really motivated, you know, things like that, rather than just focusing on the physical. That also applies to men as well, because men can still have a complex about their physical appearance, and it's not all about being super super muscly, or, you know, things like that, to be able to access the outdoors. And I think sometimes people will make a comment that is well meaning, and of course it is, but that shouldn't always be the focus. I think it should be a little bit more about the spirit of the person, or what they're setting out to do, and not just how they look when they're doing it. Even if you're saying it as a compliment, or it's something nice, it's not always helpful, and it's not always the kind of image or the perception that you're trying to get across. So I think that's a big part of it as well. And even just the unsolicited advice that people can give, whether it's men or women, you know, sometimes you don't want advice on how to do something better, or what you should be doing instead. You just want to tell your story, and you just want to put your point across, mistakes and errors and all. And I think that's important, because especially with social media, people love to tell you what to do better, or how you can do it better. And that's not always the main aim of the game. It's just telling your story and getting it across. And, you know, if you want advice, you'll ask for advice. You don't necessarily need somebody approaching you saying, have you thought about this? And why don't you try this? Because maybe you have, and they don't know what's going on in the background. So I think that's important as well. It's definitely not just about what's on the outside.
Yeah. I think, like, you even, you know, not just before someone goes and does something, or it's afterwards. It's recognizing the achievement first, and recognizing what they do, and the achievement that they've done, not specifically who it is that's done it, and or what gender they are, or what background they're from, or anything. Because it doesn't matter who somebody is if they've achieved something awesome. I mean, that's just an awesome achievement, period. And obviously awesome is a relative term for everybody, but I think if someone is psyched that they've done something, that's obviously an awesome achievement for them. There's a really good example in climbing of kind of what you touched on, Iona, where, you know, a really strong female climber will come down after having done a route, the rope's still up there, and someone will come up and ask their male belayer for the beta. It's like, that happens all the time, and unfortunately we see it all the time. And it's, yeah, there's definitely like a perception thing that we're still trying to get over. I think, like I said, I think we've come a long way since the 50s, but, you know, we've still got a good bit to go. Hamish, is this something you've come across?
Yeah, I mean, I think it still exists for sure. I think, but as you say, I think things have improved a lot. I think it certainly helps. I mean, the example I can think of is in hill running, where a lot of the females performing at the top end of hill running, trail running, fell running are doing as well as the blokes, even better in a lot of competitions. I mean, Jasmine Paris, for example, there was a point where she was breaking lots of male records. And I think having those kind of figureheads going out and doing that sort of thing is going to help improve things.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I'm guessing you guys get asked this question all the time, and it's something that we have to deal with in Mountaineering Scotland and ask ourselves a lot is, what could we do? Give us one big thing that you think we could do to tackle this kind of thing.
It's hard really to say one thing because it totally depends on the person. It totally depends on their life experiences. And if they view it like people talk about women or people, other sorts of kind of minority groups in the outdoors, they don't just have prejudice in the outdoors, it will be in the rest of their life. So tackling that is a pretty big question. But I think, as Hamish said, having role models and championing them and pushing them to the forefront and sharing their achievements, like irrelevant of their gender or their background or anything, is important and probably the best thing we can do to slowly change those stereotypes.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. It's having more, in order to create a more kind of diverse outdoors community in Scotland and the UK, then it's having more visible people from a different variety of backgrounds out there in positions like, for example, the Supported by Tiso scheme or sponsored athletes or sort of influencers on social media. Just people who other people within their own communities could kind of look up to and be like, oh, well, that person's going out and doing stuff in the hills and outdoors. So there's no reason why I can't go and do it myself and achieve the same things.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, one more question from the Facebook. We'll go for a light one. What's your go-to hiking snack? Here we go.
Mine is definitely Biscoff fudge, which is what you mentioned earlier. Not biscotti fudge, Biscoff fudge. Homemade. It's packed with sugar. It's really easy to eat, and you can store it in all of like your little pockets in your rucksack, and it gives you a good sugar boost when you need it. That would be my go-to.
I like it. I might have to try that.
Yeah.
I know this is a popular option because I gauge what all my climbing partners, what their favorite hill food is, and Percy Pigs would be mine. As the best, Percy Pigs, the best hill sweet, definitely. I take the stance. A lot of people try and eat healthy out in the hills, but I take the stance: if you're miserable, shivering, cold, halfway up a winter climbing belay, you want stuff that's going to put a smile on your face and make you feel good. For me, Percy Pigs.
John, I think mine would. Well, it used to be Snickers, but when I was in Antarctica, I ate a Snickers a day for like 58 days in a row. So now I'm not really into them anymore. So I don't really know what mine is. I've recently, I'm trying to go vegan, and I haven't been in the hills properly recently. So I'm trying to think of a good vegan snack that's going to get me through the hills for somebody that loves chocolate. So if anyone's got any recommendations, help me out.
Here we go. Right, comments, go wild. Recommendations for vegan snacks.
Vegan snacks is like a Snickers.
I don't even know what mine would be. I think I'm the same actually. I really like a Snickers on the hill. I remember one day coming down off Ben A, and it had been a really big day because I wasn't planning on doing the entire ridge. I just made a split-second decision at the top. Completely ran out of water, ran out of food. And on the way down, finding that Snickers in my bag was the best moment of my life. Very, very happy with my Snickers there. Keith Lynch says there's vegan Percy Pigs, Mollie.
Yeah, they're really good, actually. Yeah.
Nice.
There we go. Problem solved. Excellent. Someone says water. I'm not sure that's a snack. That's a necessity. It's not a snack. Cool, excellent. I think we shall wrap it up there. Thank you very much for the three of you for joining me. That was incredible. Thank you to everybody that was engaging on the Facebook. We had well over 100 viewers there for most of it. Thank you to all the comments and the questions coming in. A couple of comments saying that you guys are great role models for especially young mountaineers as well. So yeah, I think high praise from the community there.
Amazing, thank you. Thank you for hosting it. And
thanks for having us on. It's been fun.
Absolutely no worries. Hopefully I'll get to chat to you guys again. Any other questions that come in on this, or people send us comments or anything, I'll pass it on to you guys. But yeah, again, thank you from myself, Callum, Mountaineering Scotland, ClimbScotland, and Tiso. Thank you for joining me and being so open and honest.
Thanks for including me.
You're still just amazed to be here, aren't you?
Yeah.
Look at that, our first live interview. Wow. I think that went pretty well. I think those guys are awesome people. Big thank you to all three of them for sitting down with me. Big thank you to Mountaineering Scotland, ClimbScotland and Tiso for letting us do this. That was really cool. I want to know what you guys think. Did you enjoy the live interview? Did you watch it on Facebook Live? Is it something that you want us to do again in the future? There's loads of people that we could possibly sit down with and do a live interview with. So yeah, if it's something that you guys enjoyed and that you want again, let us know. Send us an email, leave us a comment. But hopefully we'll be back climbing soon. So when you do, make sure do your buddy checks.